So I'm standing outside. It is about 6:30 p.m. I'm taking pictures over and over and over of this cool looking building here in Nara, Japan, and I'm hoping that I will capture some meteors, some shooting stars from the Geminid meteor shower. This is the former site of the Nara Palace in central Japan. I came here for my first ever attempt at photographing a meteor shower. Tonight is the peak of the Geminids, which happen every December. On good years, you can see well over 100 meteors per hour in the right conditions. You need a reasonably dark sky for really great photos of meteors, but this year the moon is nearly full, which was great 2 days ago when I tried some moonrise photos behind this windmill, which I covered in another video, but will severely impact meteor shower visibility. At its peak, about 2:30 a.m., there will only be around 22 per hour. And this place has light pollution even without the moon. But it's better than Osaka, where I live, so I came here to try my luck and to experiment with camera settings in this difficult environment. Yes, I could have gone much farther away where the skies are very dark, but with the moon so bright I figured it wasn't worth gambling on hours-long train rides and hotel reservations and all that. Most of all, clouds threatened to render all this moot anyway. The forecast was for partially clear skies in the evening, but worsening overnight during the peak. So, this is going to be an off-peak, light-polluted, who knows what settings to use photo experiment. Can't wait. I'd never even been to the Nara Palace site. I only see it from a passing train sometimes. So I arrived earlier in the afternoon to scout out the area. I walked all around, checking out this amazing and stately building from different angles. It will be my point of foreground interest. Each possible shooting location had its strengths and weaknesses though. Often there are trees in the way, and I want the building clean and open. Another consideration is the different levels of light pollution in different directions. To the west is Osaka, which is the worst. Nara, to the southeast, isn't much better. Northeast looks slightly more promising. My blood sugar meter was having none of the cold, though.
In my second inner sock the whole time. Does that make it warm enough to use? No.
But then there are the clouds, which were thicker in some places than others, a situation that kept changing.
Consarn it if it's not hard finding a good view of stuff around here. I mean, it's kind of cool and atmospheric now, but I'm after meteors. It's not too cloudy over there right now. I'm actually going to start looking for meteors in maybe an hour and a half from now. An hour and a half? What am I going to do till then?
Weighing all of this, I finally settled on this angle. My camera is pointed towards the northeast, the land is flat, and the building dominates the foreground. Plus there's plenty of sky overhead to maximize the chance of catching meteors. Then it was a matter of waiting for true darkness. I warmed my meter until it worked. After sunset, I found a cold little hut next to one of Japan's ubiquitous vending machines, took some insulin, and had the dinner I'd bought from a convenience store. Then it was time. I went back to my special spot and set up my camera on the tripod. Focusing on the building was easy since it was all lit up at night, but that means even more light pollution. The idea is to balance the lighting conditions the best I can and to take as many photos as possible. Hopefully at least one will catch a shooting star, and hopefully a big bright one. The settings were really tough to decide. I connected my iPhone to my Canon camera with Wi-Fi and used it as an intervalometer. About 6:30 p.m. I began taking continuous photos. To capture the stars, and thus also faint meteors burning up in Earth's atmosphere, I had to blow out the building. This first sequence seemed a reasonable compromise. ISO 100 and f4.5 and 10-second exposures. This is them strung together in a time lapse. But the clouds got too thick, and I had to start improvising on the fly. So I'd swing the camera around to a clearer part of the sky. When clouds moved in again, I'd turn it somewhere else. Eventually, amazingly, the clouds over my building got much lighter, so I went back to it and took several sequences of photos, constantly second-guessing my settings. Those streaks are airplanes, by the way, not pieces of asteroids on fire. After a while, the moon did rise, right on schedule as always, and it looked great, at first. The higher and brighter it got, the more it did indeed complicate the lighting situation even more. For the longest sequence of the whole night, I just exposed for the building and underexposed the sky, hoping for a big bright meteor right in the frame. This was ISO 100 at f11 and 20-second exposures. The low ISO and smaller aperture are why you can't hardly see any stars. Photography can be a physically demanding hobby. While my camera snapped away incessantly, I just paced back and forth. I posed. I watched trains go by, or gazed at parts of the sky the camera wasn't looking at, just so I wouldn't miss anything. My many layers of shirt, socks, and knit caps, and my heavy coat kept me warm, so I even laid on my back on the pavement and stared straight up at the sky, where it was clearest and darkest. And I saw 3 or 4 shooting stars there with my naked eye. Bright little bursts of half-second excitement that are over before you even register that they happened. I had the place to myself, too. Only twice did people come by. A couple on bicycles, speaking English, who stopped to take photos of the moon with their phones, and later 2 people walking 2 gigantic long-haired white dogs, both of whom, the dogs I mean, were wearing collars with flashing lights. I tried to get a photo, but my backup camera had died. For sequence 13, I completely gave up on foreground interest and just pointed the camera straight up, since I had seen shooting stars there. Again, clouds mocked me. But then the whole evening changed. Just before 10 p.m., the lights on my building were switched off. It stood in relative darkness, and the moon was by now much higher in the sky. Excitedly, I swung the camera back around, framed the building so the moon was way out of the shot, and chose yet more settings. This is my final sequence of the night. I had to leave to catch my last train, and my third and final camera battery was almost dead anyway. I'd taken over 1,000 photos. Not knowing what I'd captured, if anything, I packed everything up. It had been about 7 hours out in the cold, and great fun. As I walked the couple kilometers back to the station, much thicker clouds moved in, and the rest of the night was solidly overcast, as if they'd held out as long as they could for me. The next day I carefully checked all the photos, editing them into 16 different video sequences. I ran them forward and backwards, cropped them, and inspected each carefully. Unfortunately, no meteors were showing up on any of the images, but I kept at it. And I finally found success. One photo, and only one, caught a visible shooting star. It's during sequence 16, the final one of the night. Did you see it? It happens early. Right there. It's not a super bright exploding fireball, panicking livestock and spawning religions, but I'm very happy to see it. It shows what can happen if you don't give up when out in the field. Battle the city lights, the bright moon, the floodlights, the shifting clouds, the time wasted on overly dark camera settings, and the already low probability even in clear conditions, and you'll get lucky if you stick it out long enough. I kept at it and ended up with an image that I love. And there's a lot to love about it, especially the version I processed from the RAW file. I like the fade in the sky, and the glint on the 3 gold pieces on top of the building. There are plenty of stars visible. I even like that plume of smoke at the bottom, and the streetlights that give you a sense of scale. When you see an image like this that you took, you're reminded of the experience of getting it. If you want to see amazing photos of shooting stars, you can just look online. The point of the one you took is that you put the effort in to get it. For me, the whole day's tribulations and successes are captured in this one image. I learned a lot about photographing meteor showers for the next time, too. Like finding darker skies would probably have been worth it. And these settings, which were ISO 250 at f3.5 and 6-second exposures, seem to be the sweet spot in these circumstances. Incidentally, I got curious about what these stars around my meteor were. In particular, what about these 4 that enclose it? According to the great website Star Atlas, this one is Jowzar, the only one with a cool name. The others are called HR 4181, ET Ursae Majoris, and 38 Ursae Majoris. Jowzar is part of the Draco constellation, but the other 3 are up for grabs. So I'm declaring a new constellation. Due to its approximate shape, the name of this new constellation shall henceforth be Colonel Rhombus, in honor of the character from Spies Like Us.
Colonel Rhombus, Special Projects Training.
Thanks for joining me and Colonel Rhombus on our adventure in the Nara Palace site on a frigid Saturday night. Let me know what you would have done differently. See you next time.